Alright, so we're back today. It is Monday, and I had a day off, so here I am working on the Mini again. I'm not going to get a lot done today because a lot of stuff needs to dry, and it's going to take about 24 hours to dry, including the putty that I'm using to fill the weld seams, which I actually had a comment about what I'm doing to prevent rust from reoccurring as much as possible, and I'm going to show you that stuff in just a second. But on the front of the cars, the Minis in particular, a lot of older cars, you get the rust spots around the factory welds and all that fun stuff. So I got my fenders here. This one I started sanding down, preparing for paint work, primer on the inside. Now you can see all this, I don't know, grayish white putty all around the welds there. And these headlights, well, the headlight mounting bracket actually comes welded on the fender. I don't know if they all do that, but the ones that I bought did. And they're very prone to rust underneath here because they're welded to the metal of the fender itself on the outside. And there's no real protection in between this ring and the metal on the other side. So what I did was I took some of this putty here, and basically what it's going to do is it's going to harden, and when it hardens it's still going to be a little bit malleable. It's going to have a little bit of flex to it. That way you can still use it on, as you can see here, I've already used it. But it's not pretty right here, but it doesn't matter if it's pretty or not, because this is going to be underneath the fender anyway and you won't be able to see it. But I used it right here on both sides, and if there's any kind of body panels you're using that are going to have a little bit of flex to them, then this stuff is great for that. But I'm going to put it on pretty much every single weld seam. That way no water can get trapped in between the metal, start to corrode the primer or paint, if there is any, in between those body panels, and then start to rust all over again. So I'm using that putty to fill in the edge around here, all the way around. There's also a weld seam here. I don't know if you can see it, but there's one right here, and that one's also very prone to rust, and there's another one here, which is also prone to rust. You can see it a little bit better on that one since it started drying, and it gets a little more transparent when it dries, but it's still going to stay in this color, and then you can just prime or paint right on top of it. Outside, I already have the front panel primed, and I already used the putty on there. That way I don't get, this is the old one here. Actually, I'm going to show you on the old one as well. But along these seams here, it's prone to rust. Of course, all up on this weld seam here, all prone to rust because it just holds water. And then once I get the body panel, the front body panel back on the car, and the fender joined, which is actually going to be right here with the front panel, once I get those joined and spot welded on, or plug welded on in my case, I'm going to use that same putty there, and I'm going to fill in all those weld seams as well. That way it'll be a little more rust protectant. So here's the old front fender, and this is the rust that I'm talking about that's prone to, because that mounting ring for the headlight is welded on, or spot welded on. There's no real protectant between the two pieces of metal, and then you start getting all this rust around the headlights, which is very, very common on the Minis. Also, you can see right there where the joint between the front scuttle and the fender. We'll just go to this side, and here you can see there's nothing. This is what it used to look like. There's nothing to fill that in at all. And then more rust in this weld seam, and this one here. So hopefully all that will be gone. Also, I had side marker lights, as you can see, and I got the new fenders without side marker lights, and the reason being, less opportunity for rust. You can see that that wasn't a problem with these ones, but I have seen some Minis where that is a problem, and I just don't want to run into it. I also used the welding seam putty, or the welding putty, I guess, all along the edges of where the scuttle joins the inner panel as well. Alright, so I got the front panel welded on, and I've actually got all the fenders and everything lined up. Now, when you're replacing the front panels, what you want to do is take your fenders, your front panel, and your hood, go ahead and put it all on temporarily, get everything lined up. Then you want to go and clamp everything down in place. I used a marker to go ahead and mark on the inside of the front panel where it welds onto the firewall here. I used a marker to mark where everything lined up, and then I was able to take everything off, drill out my plug weld holes, and then weld everything on. So I knew that when I went to go put the fenders on, the front panel was in the right position. A lot of the lining up depends on your hood as well, so make sure you put your hood on. I went ahead and put it on the hinges just to make sure everything would line up, and then when you go to drop the hood, with the new panel you might have to adjust your spring here up and down. I'm going to have to bring mine up because the hood doesn't close enough. It does latch and everything closed in the hole, so everything's lined up there, but it just sits up a little bit too high for the grill to line up, which is not a big deal. That's there's a bolt right up on top of the spring that you can adjust that with, so not a problem. But as you can see, the lines on the this isn't even clamped down. The fender's actually just sitting on here, but the lines are pretty good. Everything's lining up fairly decently. I'm gonna have to shape it a little bit up here due to the fact that I have a wider gap here than here, and also, as you can see, it should be sitting like this. On that lip of the firewall, but mine's not quite touching there yet. But that's not going to be that big of a deal. It's going to require a little bit of muscle. Put a couple tack welds down, move the body panel into place, clamp it down with a pair of vice grips, and then finish the additional welds. Another thing I'm going to do once I get this welded in, I'm not going to fill in this crease because I like the line there, and it's also showing that there's no Bondo there, because what you'll see is a lot of times when people repair something here that's all rusted out, they'll Bondo the entire thing right here and Bondo this closed. But instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of that compound. I'm going to squeeze it down in there when I put the panel on, and then I'm going to clean it up so you can still see the line really well, but it's also so no water can get in there as well. That way I don't have any potential rust issues in that gap. And then I'll do the same. I'll put the compound in here once everything's welded, and then put primer on everything and paint it. Yep, I appreciate you hanging in there with me, and should be one, maybe two more videos, and then we'll be done.